Hey guys, I'm back with another video. Here to review not only one of my favorite films, one of my favorite comedy films as well. This was released 14 years ago, 2008, and it stars Ben Stiller, Robert Downey Jr., and Jack Black, and an elite cast including Matthew McConaughey and Tom Cruise. And this is Tropic Thunder. Now, I did not watch this film when it first came out. I was 11 when this film first came out. I just saw it earlier this year, and by God, this is hilarious. I mean, it still holds up to this day because a lot of the stuff that they talked about then still holds weight today, like whitewashing of characters in Hollywood and blackface and actors receiving backlash for characters that they played, whether that was whether it was a role that should have been gone to a person of color or a role that they considered offensive because it was maybe whether it was blackface or whether it was playing a mentally handicapped person, then they deserve to be called out on it, which I think still definitely happens to this day. Look at what happened with Scarlett Johansson and Ghost in the Shell, and Hollywood still continues to do it because I don't know why they prefer to hire white actors or audition white actors for roles that should go to people of color instead of hiring us. But that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But this whole film is completely satire, so if you're easily offended by something, or if you don't don't like talking about certain topics just because you might feel offended, or you might feel like it might hurt someone, I feel like you're gonna have to put that aside for this, because it generally doesn't make fun of the people that you think it does. It's more of a outlook on how Hollywood actors are perceived when it comes to certain roles that they take, such as Rob Downey Jr. When he played blackface in this film, the outrage wasn't more so from the black people, it was from everyone else. And I think that's because they didn't really understand it. And I mean, in my opinion, I thought a lot of black people, from what I've seen, we thought this was freaking hilarious because Brandon T. Jackson, who's a black actor, he was in this film. If there wasn't a black person constantly calling Robert Downey Jr.'s character out on this, then I think it would have been more offensive than anything else. And I think it would have been more offensive if they actually tried to make him look black. Like the photos I've seen in like the 1960s and 50s and stuff like that, like way before, that was hella offensive. Like, this is light work compared to how they used to make us look. And it was just absolutely freaking crazy how they tried to paint us out to look like freaking baboons and stuff. The way it's done in this film, it just is so smart because they don't put down black people to uplift white people. They don't disrespect black people in any kind of way. It's more so of a, hey, if you do this, you should be called out on this. For another example, Rob Downey Jr. calls out Ben Stiller for playing a mentally handicapped person, and he gives some really good examples. Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man, Tom Hanks and Forrest Gump. While those actors were received well for their performances in those films, it wasn't without a price because everyone's going to be offended at something. And Robert Downey Jr. as a black guy in this film, they something else that they call out as well when it comes to giving when it comes to people of color, they would rather Hollywood would rather give it to a white person playing a person of color, or they're going to uh, Bullet Train, for example. Let me give an example. Bullet Train is based on the manga. The two main protagonists, well, Brad Pitt and Joey King's character are Japanese. That's a perfect example. They're still doing it to this day. I don't know when we're gonna get the change to come around to that, but I feel like it needs to be sooner rather than later. And Robert Downey is constantly called out on his stereotypical actions of how black people talk and how we walk, and even his even his staying in character is very it's even calling people out who method act, I don't think uh, which I don't think is necessary at all. Austin Butler did it during the whole run of the Elvis Presley movie interviews and stuff like that, and it was more annoying than anything else. Same thing with Jared Leto with like Morbius and the Suicide Squad. It was more creepy and disturbing than than anything. And there's, like I said, there's no need to method act all the time. And well, Tom Cruise in this film is freaking hilarious. A lot of people didn't know it was him, and I believe he took an uncredited role to keep it secret. But this was just straight hilarious all the way through. And uh, but yeah, if you're like I said, if you're easily offended by this, this might not be for you. But Robert Downey Jr.'s blackface, it just looked like he rubbed dirt on himself. So I wasn't offended by anything in this film. Depending on what your sense of humor is, it might be, but that's really up for you to judge. But I think this film, I would give it 3 stars. I think it's a great outlook on how Hollywood is perceived from the outside looking in. But they did this in a really smart way, addressing all the topics that I just discussed. But let me know what you guys think of this film. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe.